This week, we're talking to my friend and colleague Jody Halstead, who owns Ireland Family Vacations and the Traveling in Ireland podcast. Jody and I began travel blogging early on, kind of in the same era, but her dexterity at listening to her audience, marketing creatively, and really thinking outside the box have taken her down a very interesting path. One which has led her to a business where ad revenue is no longer her primary earning source. So come listen to this extended interview with Jody, where she shares how affiliates, books, a podcast, and more have really turned her blog on its head. Jody, I am so glad to be with you this afternoon. How are you doing? Where are you coming to us from?
I'm doing really, really well. The sun is finally shining and we're out of our second winter. So
Right.
it's beautiful. Right now I'm in Iowa. It's where my girls wanted to be for school. And because we want them to leave the house one day, we, let them go to school, and we used to homeschool. But they
Right.
wanted to go to public school. And so that's what they're doing. And that's why we're here right now.
That's exciting. Okay, so I'm so excited to talk to you. We were just chatting before this about when we first met each other. And it's kind of embarrassing. I kind of don't want to tell people. We met at a type A mom conference back when mom blogging was the thing. Gosh, you didn't have a mom blog either, did you?
I didn't at the time. When I started blogging in 2004, it was totally a mom blog.
Mm.
But that was like the beginning of blogging, right?
Right. It was like
But
we were saying maybe 2015 or 2016 is
yeah,
when we met.
somewhere around there. But the thing was, there weren't that many really good blog conferences for women.
True. It's true.
And Kelby did a great job of really leveling up education.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. It was in Atlanta, which is why I went, because I was homeschooling my kids. My husband was working full time at the time, so it was just like, wow, it's here. I can go. So I'm glad I did, and we got to meet up. Things have
And I
changed
was
for both of
homeschooling
us.
I was homeschooling at the time too. And my kids actually came with me.
Oh, that's smart. That's super smart.
Yeah.
Well, things have changed incredibly for both of us,
Yeah.
for you especially. So what I'm excited to talk to people about today with you and inspire them to do is something different. And I hope we're going to spend quite a bit of time talking about your podcast. I'm excited to hear about that. But I want to start maybe before that, because I think you're one of the most innovative bloggers in my circles. And I admire how you've really made a shift. Now, I felt a shift from you. And then, of course, before this call, just validated it with you. But I think I thought of you as a travel blogger in the past. And now I think you're an entrepreneur who has a blog. Can you talk a little bit about that transition?
Yeah, I think what you say is very right. I don't really identify as a travel blogger, and I haven't for years. I did start off as a travel blogger, and I had a family travel blog, one of the very first family travel blogs, back in 2006. And just the way things were going and looking at the bigger picture of what was coming down the road, I realized that I was either going to be a little fish in a big pond, because when I started, family travel was a very small niche in travel.
Right.
And then it started to really grow. And as I saw that, I was like, well, I can be this little fish in this big pond in an ocean,
Right.
or I can be this massively big fish in this little puddle off to the side of the pond near the ocean.
It's such a
So
beautiful puddle, too.
it is a pretty beautiful puddle. So that's when I decided that I was going to focus 100% on Ireland travel, with kind of a sub focus on family travel, because at the time, Tourism Ireland was not doing family travel. That's just nobody, they didn't even bother. If you went on the Tourism Ireland website, they sent you to me.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was a pretty big thing. but to take that, to basically step away from, I mean, multiple, I mean, dozen of uh, pay, fam trips. I mean, I basically was stepping away from everything that people were working toward at the time, the fam trips and the partnerships and all of that, to just say, no, here's where I'm focusing.
That had to be scary. No?
I sometimes think that I leap before I look in a lot of ways.
Nice.
And maybe I should have been scared by it, but like I said, I was really looking at kind of the forward facing picture of it and realizing that if I wanted to really stand out, that I needed to figure
Make
out who I was and what I stood for. And I can't be an expert in everything, but damn it, nobody knows more about Ireland travel than I do. So,
right, right. So when you decided to move from kind of general family travel, which sounds kind of funny back then, right? There was no such thing
right.
as general family travel back then, but from family travel in general, to Ireland, you were still
Just a blogger.
just blogging, right? Ireland
Mhm,
family vacations.
mhm.
Here's all the things to do. Were you just focused on ad revenue at that time, or did you have other outlets like in the beginning stages?
At
Other
that
financial
time,
outlets?
it was really affiliate revenue.
Affiliates. Okay.
Yeah, I actually turned Mediavine down 3 or 4 times before I joined
Wow.
because I didn't want to dilute what I have. And I'm gonna give you a really strong kick. I'm actually weaning off of it
Wow. Goals. That's goals.
because, well, the way, and this probably is a whole nother tangent, but I figured out that, like, on my car rental article, which is one of the top car rental articles. I mean, I vacillate between 1 and 3
Okay.
on car rental in Ireland. Well, the every time somebody is on that page, what I make from my affiliate partner is about $5 a person,
Which
right?
is a lot more than an ad.
Which is a lot more than the 4.2 cents
Right.
that I get for page view from Mediavine. So I actually took all my Mediavine ads off of that article.
That makes perfect sense. I was
Um,
scared about ads too. I mean, we had 250,000 page views a month for 2 years before I added ads. And then I kind of freaked out and I added like, oh, I'll add 2 ads. And now it is our primary revenue model, but I can see if affiliates are your revenue model or a product or a service, then it kind of takes away because those people are probably getting car rental ads too, if that's what they've
yeah,
been on.
I don't know what they're getting because my site is so niche specific. A lot of the times the ads on my site, at least the ones that show up for me, are
They're like the
just
public service
random. I mean,
announcement.
they're just random things that they think I would like to see based on my cookies, right?
Right, right, right.
So who knows what they're getting? But very few ads are niche specific. Maybe they're getting like a get your guide ad, but then it's popping up for, Spain or France or something. And they're like,
Right. I'm
so
gonna go to
yeah,
Ireland.
yeah. So I'm really trying to kind of wean off of that slowly and refocusing revenue. Yeah.
So when you started the blog, your focus is on affiliates. Eventually you get around to maybe some ad revenue.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna guess you probably moved into, were you doing services for people like itineraries or what products? Was it your books? Tell us how your revenue model evolved.
So my revenue model evolved from requests of people emailing me and saying, what do we do? Where do we go? Because there's so much Ireland information out there, but people just can't really put it together. It's the whole I want to do it all
Mm.
type of thing, and realizing that there's so much that they just get overwhelmed. That's one of the things I hear the most is there's so much to choose from. I'm overwhelmed. And
For the record, I went for a month and we barely scratched the surface. It's a small little place, just jam packed.
and there's becoming to be more because you have more businesses opening up focusing on activities. It used to be all about the things to see and the history. And the Irish are really coming to understand that they have so much more than that. So you're finding more activities and hands-on. And anyway, I could go on and on, but I won't. Um, so that's kind of how it started, because it takes a lot of time to do an itinerary, and people wanted it to fit their vacation goals and their interests and things like that. And that just, it takes time. So that was probably the first thing I did, was I started offering a service, and it was very cheap. It was $75. And I
What?
just called it vacation coaching. And the reason was, there was a woman out there who had been doing Ireland vacation coaching for years, and that's what she charged. It's what she still charges, I'll be honest. Um, but yeah,
my grandma always says you get what you pay for, though.
Exactly. So my prices obviously have gone up, but I do have limits on what I do. I don't do any bookings. I am not a travel agent. I don't want to deal with your cancellations.
Oh, wow.
So I don't do bookings. You are paying me for my knowledge, my expertise, the people I know that I can get you into, and my advice. So
I love that. That takes a lot of weight off your shoulders. Do you get pushback from that? Or because you're going to just give people a booking link, right? Probably an affiliate booking link, or tell them who to call.
Yeah.
So that's got to take a lot of weight off your shoulders.
It does, because again, I'm not a travel agent. I don't want to be a travel agent. I don't want to deal with your credit card possibly getting hacked.
Right.
I don't want to deal with you deciding 4 times to change a hotel. I know so many people in Ireland that usually all it takes is an email or a phone call from me. And where there was not an availability, suddenly you're a VIP.
Wow.
And that's
so
just
what do you
because
call
of the
that service
relationships.
again?
So I do 2 things. I do vacation coaching, which is a 30-minute phone call service. And then from that, they get a full page of kind of the notes of what we talked about, and the recommendations I made. And I usually come up with 2 or 3 other things that I think they might like while I'm writing it out, and they'll get that too. And they get a recording of our call.
Okay.
So that's
like the base level.
Yep. And it's $100 for 30 minutes.
Wow. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
But then it takes you another 30 minutes to an hour to put together.
It's basically an hour of my time. I limit it to that.
Oh, that's great.
I can't, I used to do so much more. I would over deliver. And I've gotten to the point where I can't over deliver. I'm too busy. So, and then I have custom Ireland itinerary planning, and that is a larger service. It starts at $500 for 2 people for 7 days. And I think the most expensive one is $1,500.
Nice.
For a 2-week vacation of, I don't know, 7 to 10 people.
So, is that your primary focus now? Is trying to sell more of those itineraries? Or do you have another
I'm actually
service
trying
line?
to cut that out.
You're looking at me like
I'm actually trying to cut that out. It's kind of funny because it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it is. And there's a bottleneck because there's only one of you, right?
Yeah. So I'm working on kind of reimagining those kind of things. What I do right now, where I make the most of my money, and I do have to thank you for kind of pushing this idea that I'd had for a while, is I've partnered with a driver guide company for a few years now, and they had approached me about advertising. And then it just grew from there. And I make a solid 6 figures just by referring people to them for a fully driver-led, hotel booked. So they're a travel company in Ireland.
Oh, so did they play agents?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Wow.
But they pay me a very nice commission.
Right.
For vetting clients who come to me. So I rank #1 in the world for hiring a driver guide in Ireland, Ireland driver guide, that kind of thing.
And you just
So,
milked it. I
oh yeah.
love that.
So last year they actually in April of last year, they said, Jody, you can't send us any more bookings. We don't have room for people who actually contact us directly. And they work with Disney as well. They're Disney's driver company. So so the Disney private tours, this is who they use. But they're like, we don't have room for Disney.
Oh my
So
God.
you can't make any more bookings with us until next September. So I have, in the busiest months, I have 500 to 700 people a month contacting me for a driver guide referral. And last year I just started, sorry, I don't have anybody. Sorry, I don't have anybody. So this year I actually reached out to driver guides and I said, here's what I do. Here's what I did last year. Would you like me to send you red hot leads? If you
Wow.
do, here's your upfront payment to me.
And it worked.
Yeah.
Wow. So a lot of that was, the majority of that sounds like it was SEO driven. And you
Yeah,
just knew how to
SEO is gold. Yeah.
make money beyond the ads with
Mhm.
that SEO. And I'm so amazed at how you're able to leverage that partnership, that deal from a business perspective. And maybe Ireland's not the same way, but I tend to run into, I can tell people, I can give you 200,000, impressions, or we
Mhm.
book 15 hotels a day, certainly not as much as you, but they don't care because we don't have Instagram.
I don't have Instagram.
Uh,
I mean, I do have Instagram, but I hate Instagram and
I
I
know,
post one reel
that's
a
where I'm
week.
going. So it's just because you were able to offer them immediate sales that they didn't want to vet you in those other ways? Do you think that's what it was? Or do you think Ireland
Um,
wasn't as interested maybe in Instagram or
right.
TikTok at the time?
So with the drivers, it's all about the fact that they're independent drivers, right?
Gotcha.
So it's harder for them to get noticed. Well, if I'm getting, I mean, I have travel agents contacting me for drivers
Wow.
because,
Because
like I said,
do people
I'm
not drive over there? That's weird. I drove, but I learned how
I
to
drive
drive in
too.
Japan, which is the same side of the road. So
um, well, some of these are larger groups, and when you get a larger group and a larger vehicle, it is a bit
it's
tighter
harder
and,
in
and a
Ireland.
little more difficult. But also some of them are older, or they just really want to sit back and everybody gets to enjoy.
Wow.
So, there's a lot of different ways that works. But basically what I said was last year I sold $200,000 worth of car rental, driver guided tours, and Wi-Fi rentals. So those are my three big affiliates, right?
And so they were like, okay.
And I receive X number of requests every month for a driver guide. My main driver guide company is not able to fulfill every request that I receive. I am able to send you, um, they're vetted. They're not just, I got this email. They're vetted. I let them know, here's how much a driver guide costs a day. It's all in a template. Click, change the name. Um, and if they respond, then I set them up with a driver guide.
Wow. That's so impressive.
So, yeah.
So let's talk. You've got books behind you. You've written a couple books. How do you think that plays in? Was that early on? Was that recent? How did it play into what you are doing now?
Okay. So my first book was Planning the Ireland Vacation of Your Dreams. And actually, it's self published. I just did it as a PDF that I sold on my site for $15. And then after a couple of years and an update, I pushed it over to Amazon. So it's exclusively on Amazon now. It's on Kindle Unlimited. So if people have Kindle Unlimited, they get to read it for free and they can print on demand if they want. Basically, it is a step-by-step of articles that I have on my site of
Oh,
how to
wow.
plan your Ireland vacation. But at the time, they weren't really grouped together in a way that people could say step one, step two, step three, step four, because they'd been on my site for so long that they were all
All over the place.
way back in the back. So during COVID, as we were coming out, I was working with my business coach, and I'm like, I don't want to update the book. I want to do like a planner and journal.
Mm.
So I made this, and it is basically the same as the book, but it's filled with um, forms and maps, and like this, you actually go through it and plan your vacation, and then
Like
at
a
the end,
workbook almost.
yeah, and then at the end is a journal for your time in Ireland.
Wow.
So it's
So
like
are
a
you
memory
printing
piece.
and delivering that the same way, like through Amazon or through a
No,
site?
Amazon doesn't do wire bound, spiral
Okay.
bound. So I actually have a local printer that prints them for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
So do you think that are people usually finding you and then the book is additional revenue, or people are finding the book? One of the ways people are finding you is because they find the book first. What do you think?
So with the Amazon book, the whole reason I keep that on Amazon now is just to get people to my site. So it's
Okay.
basically just a marketing piece. With the planner and journal, people have found me, um, and it is something that they buy. They get emails about it, and if they listen to my podcast, then they have a super special exclusive code that
Ooh,
they can
that's a
order.
smart idea. So you do really think of it maybe not as another revenue source, but as a marketing tool.
The book is a marketing tool. The planner is a revenue source.
Gotcha. Wow. That's brilliant. I've never heard of the workbook angle. I love that.
Yeah, that I was talking with somebody, or no, I was reading an article, and it was about travel, like uh travel. What do they? Oh my gosh, I can't
Journals,
even
like
think of the
travel
word.
journals, travel
No,
planners.
like books, like
Oh, the guides.
travel guides. Yes, thank you. Um, and it was talking about how people are kind of tearing their guides apart and only taking the pieces that matter to them. They're not taking a
They're
whole
so
book,
heavy too.
or yeah, so people are using them differently than they used to, right? They're not walking around with the Rick Steves book in front of them,
Right.
and then they're using them as kind of mementos and keepsakes. Well, I was like, well, why not just make one that people can use? So it's got, I mean, it has like four sections in it, and it starts off with like, when can I travel? And so you have your whole travel planning section right there, and it kind of talks you through all the coverages that you need, and has tips for what do I splurge on, and Ireland experiences and discounts to find, and then it has itinerary planning tips, and I made maps so you can like map it out. But then when you realize that there's too much on that first map, there's a second map. And then when you realize it's still not good, there's a third map, so that this
That
is the
would be
one we're
me.
really
I
doing.
would say, of course, we can do 15 tours in one
Yeah,
day, boys.
yeah.
It's fine.
There's got a packing list, and money and connectivity. So it's got all the tips. It's got a countdown checklist of the things you need to do from like 2 weeks before you could leave, and then it's got the journal where it's on a dot grid, and then it's got these little prompts at the top that are really faint. So if you like prompts, that's there, and if you don't, then it doesn't show up that much. So anyway,
That's sensational.
yeah, it was fun to make.
How long have you had that? So that's after
It's
COVID.
just over a year.
Wow.
I launched it a year ago, March.
That's so exciting.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Okay,
been
so
fun.
let's talk about your latest project, which is why I wanted to have you on. But you have so much good information. It's taken us this whole time to get there.
Right, yeah.
So you've started a podcast, Traveling in Ireland,
Mhm.
and you said it's like the best thing you've ever done.
Ever. So I actually started the podcast 2017, 20, I don't know. It's been a few years, but I don't do that many podcast episodes. And I did take COVID pretty much off because what am I going to talk about? But I was on so many podcasts talking about Ireland, and I really liked it because I can literally talk forever. And so the thing I noticed was that while I can talk forever about it, people really like listening to Irish people talk.
Yeah,
So
it's true.
so I have guests on, and the whole point of it when I started was that so people could meet the people they might meet in Ireland. So I have on like hotel or B&B owners, people who have small tour companies. A lot of the people that I have on are mom and pop type people. They're not these uh, big sites. Although I've had Epic Museum and Jeannie Johnson on, I actually had the Minister for Tourism on one of my earlier podcasts, which was kind of a coup. Um, so it's fun though, because what I end with and what keeps, so I have this crazy high finish rate for my podcasts. Like
Oh,
85% of people listen to my entire podcast.
that's unheard of. So how
And
long
they're
are they usually?
30 minutes.
Wow.
Here's why they listen. Number one, if it's me talking, if it's just me talking, 15, 20 minutes, right? But they know I'm giving them gold. But when I have a guest on, I end with three recommendations of the places near you that people should be sure to add to their Ireland itinerary, and people listen for that.
Okay, so if it's, for example, a hotelier,
Mm-hmm.
so you're talking to them about the hotel, and then you'll say, here are 3 things around the hotel that people should do. That's brilliant. And then I can imagine it's not just people who are listening, maybe avid fans who are listening on the regular, but now if I am all of a sudden planning an Ireland trip, I'm going back and listening to 15 episodes based on that itinerary you just gave me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow. And you told me something super cute that I loved. What you were telling me about people listening to you.
Oh yeah. It's so the greatest thing about podcasting is that people feel like they know you because you're in their ears and you're in their head. So they feel like you're a friend talking to them, right? I get emails or messages all the time, you're with me every time I walk the dog. Or when
I
I'm on the
love
treadmill
that.
at the gym, you're there with me working out. I get so many emails from people after their trip saying we did this because this guest recommended it and it was the best part of our vacation. Or they'll email me and say, Jody, we went up and saw, like, I have a shepherd. I've got a friend who's a 4th-generation shepherd. We went and saw Jamesy, and it was the most amazing part of our trip. Or they'll send me pictures of their trip. So it's so much joy. I love that.
What comes to mind is like when a doctor who delivers babies has all the baby pictures up.
Mhm.
Like I feel like you have all the people who you've helped with their perfect family vacation.
Yeah, I get Ireland pictures all the time. I get emails, and it's honestly the best part of my day when I get an email or a message on Instagram, sharing that kind of stuff. It makes all the frustration
Right.
and everything so worthwhile.
So what advice would you have thinking about what's made your podcast successful, the challenges you've had? What advice would you give to somebody who was thinking about a podcast? And before you answer, let me preface that with saying nobody really wants to listen to how people in Atlanta talk. So when I think about doing a podcast, there are some cool places that I want to tell people about. I'm like, I don't know if people really want to hear that from me, and people don't travel to Atlanta like they travel to Ireland.
Mm-hmm,
So I'm
mm-hmm.
just wondering, is it for everybody? Is there something for everybody? Are you running into challenges? What would you say to somebody who's considering
So the first thing that you have to really know is who your audience is,
it?
because there are, for me, two of my biggest competitors are in Ireland.
Oh,
I'm never going to have the content they have on their website.
right.
But what they can't do is give people the knowledge of being a visitor, but B, a constant visitor that is actually,
Like a
has,
local.
yeah, yeah. And that's what I have. I mean, I know so many people. I've spent so much time in so many places. I have towns that have adopted me. So it kind of is that experience of being a visitor, so knowing what a visitor is going to go through or kind of experience and what they want to experience, as well as having that insider knowledge just from so much time there. Um, so really know who you're talking to. Do the research on podcasts that are out there. When I started, there were a couple of podcasts. One has dropped off. The other one, it still shows up once in a while, but I don't know that they're recording. And then another podcast came up to try to do what I was doing and dropped after 3 or 4 months. People don't stick with podcasting. I actually got an email from my podcast host the other day saying that while podcast listener numbers are up, the amount of people creating new podcasts is down.
Really?
Mhm.
Wow. See, I would have thought by now that was saturated, much like YouTube.
So the thing with podcasting, and this is my opinion, is that it's really hard to monetize well,
That makes sense.
because podcasting, like if you're selling like a podcast spot through your host, it pays like Mediavine does. It's like pennies,
Right.
which, if unless you're a massive podcast, just doesn't really make it worth the time.
Right.
So you have to be able to market yourself and sell things to your audience.
And you already had that
And
avenue.
I have that, and then I have some affiliates that I work with. They're really great. I say, "Hey, I want to add this to the podcast. My people need a super easy code. It can't be all, Ireland travel 2023. Too much. It has to be like IFV,
Right, right, right.
and that gets them a discount, or that, it gets them something. So I can say, "Hey, you're going to need a car." So this is the one I use a lot. "You're going to need a car to get to these destinations. Don't forget that you get a 10% discount when you use irishcarrentals.com. Put in IFV in the coupon code." Blah, blah, boom, 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 boom.
So you're offering that as a service to your audience, which makes them come back. Now, are you charging for that too as an advertiser, or are you just using it as a way to get people to grow your affiliates?
That's my second largest affiliate commission is through them. I sell over €1 million of car a year for them.
Wow. So it's like it's just gravy for you. Like you don't
It's
need
just,
them to pay you to be a sponsor because it's worth it for you to mention them anyway.
yeah.
And then I'm assuming the mom and pops that you bring on, you don't charge them for being
I
guests.
don't. The being on my podcast is absolutely free. I ask them for a backlink. Granted, they're not a
You're
big
backlink,
backlink, but
You're
I
like,
ask
what's a
them for a
backlink?
back.
I'll put
I
you on
asked them.
social.
I asked them for a backlink to my website from theirs, and just back to their interview, right?
That's perfect, right?
And they don't, just put it anywhere on your site. I don't care. If you need help with it, I'll help you. Here's the code. I also give them, they can embed the audio player into their site if they want to. My podcast host has that. So it's like, here, embed the audio player. Here's the code for your backlink. Yeah.
Just make it as easy as possible.
Make it as easy as possible.
Wow. So do you think it is the uniqueness of your destination? Like, do you think if the goal of a blogger is to drive more traffic to their site and not necessarily make more money, do you think it's worthwhile? You think you need a product?
So the people, my blog audience and my podcast audience are different people.
Wow.
My podcast audience doesn't go to my blog unless they have a reason to.
Wow.
So I do tell them, all the links in this are in the show notes and that kind of stuff, right? But a lot of the times they're just listeners.
Wow.
So it's a completely different audience. I mean, like I said, they'll go to my site,
Right.
but they're there to absorb the information through their ears.
Wow.
And if when they're ready to travel, then they'll go to the site.
They
The
just want to
people
be
on
with
my
you.
website are there because they want the best information on planning and executing their trip. People on my website aren't coming for articles like the 10 best things to do in Killarney. It's hard for me to rank for anything like that because I have those two big competitors in Ireland. They are always going to beat me. I don't have a team of writers.
Right.
And I don't want a team of writers because that takes away from the voice that I've cultivated, the voice
Right.
that people are used to hearing. Um, so I try to let that go. I'm never going to rank for that, but I will outrank them all day for how to rent a car in Ireland, how to drive in Ireland as a tourist, how to hiring a driver guide in Ireland, the clothes to wear for your clothes to pack for your island vacation. I will outrank them all day long for those kind of terms.
And
But
that
then
just
I
brings in
also,
the people to buy
yeah,
the book and read the other articles.
yeah, and download my itineraries and click all the affiliate links in those. So I have itineraries, but they're free.
Wow. And so talk to us about, do you use them for lead magnets? Talk about your
Mhm.
newsletter list.
Yeah, they are completely a lead magnet. I have 2 newsletters right now. Well, 3-ish. So another thing I do is I lead tours, and
Oh,
they're exclusive tours. I only do 1, maybe 2 a year of my own tours, but then I have a tour company that actually has hired me to create and guide their tours. So I get
wow.
to go to Ireland on their dime and get
I
paid
know you
for it as
hate
well.
that.
So that's just a whole nother branch that actually just happened in the last year. And the people who come on my tours are my podcast listeners because they know me and they want to hang out with me.
Right. That's so amazing.
Yeah.
It's brilliant how you built it. And what do you, where were you inspired? What made you, were you just adamantly, I think you're like me and just, I'm going to do it different than everybody else, but certainly it had to be something beyond that.
I don't know. That's a really great question. I think it was just more of how can I make this easier for people? It really, everything I've done has come from a place of
Just wanting to
wanting to
service
help.
people.
And
Yeah.
yeah, it didn't start with how am I making money on this blog. It started with a passion. And then it just moved to how can I make sure that these people have the most amazing trip? Because my first, it was about family travel in Ireland, which wasn't covered.
Right.
And there wasn't information really out there about it. And because Ireland is so easy for Americans and Canadians, so North Americans basically, because it's an English speaking country,
Right.
it's often the very first international trip a family will take.
Wow. I didn't realize that, but it is great for kids. I mean, it's spectacular from end to end.
Yeah. So it really was just about, and also like with the free itineraries, it was really about how can I not have to write this out for people all the time
All the time. The
and
same
have
thing
them
over and
email me and
over.
ask. So I just made these itineraries. They're free. They have links throughout them. Um, I it comes out to about for every itinerary that goes out, um, that each one is worth about $50 to $75 for me in affiliate revenue.
Wow. And so
Because
do you follow that up with a newsletter? Do you have a weekly newsletter or monthly newsletter, or
I
you just
have
share
a
your
monthly
podcast?
newsletter,
Okay.
and then I have a weekly RSS feed that I update with some sort of promotion on it. So it's either a a tour that I partner with, or it's my product, or I sell ad space on there. I have one exclusive driver guide ad space that I sell that they get for annual email. So they're
Wow.
on once a quarter, they get an
Right.
ad. Um, so yeah, but
I'm blown away. Like,
yes,
I
but I
knew
don't
you were
have,
doing amazing things, but I don't think I realized just how incredible.
it's a lot. And I'm just gonna say that it's just me. I don't have a team. So it's almost too much. And I would like a team, but I just don't do a lot of the things I hate, like social media.
Right. Well, what's the point at this point?
And yeah, and I don't do a lot of new content on my site beyond the podcasts. Um, I try to update my articles, but there's so many on there. It'll take me years to get through them all, and it's not my primary focus because
Right.
people aren't finding the things that people come for are updated and highly SEO'd. But a lot of what I do, people don't know to search for, right? So people know to search for, the things to do with the Cliffs of Moher or the Ring of Kerry, Blarney Castle, Dublin. But nobody is going to search for Beyond the Trees, Avondale, because nobody's heard of it.
Hmm.
So for me to worry about writing a highly SEO'd article on that
Doesn't make
just
sense.
doesn't make sense. But every single person who hears that podcast is like, that's amazing. We added that to our trip.
Oh,
So it's just knowing what to focus on
right.
and knowing what problem your audience wants solved.
So where you mentioned the place where people don't know to search for, and then the terms that you are ranking for that are paying off for you.
Mm-hmm.
How do you do that keyword research? So you're saying you don't write any new content at all. So you're not really thinking about keyword research anymore at this point. So how did you make decisions before that?
So I do. So every podcast I have has an article attached to it.
Okay.
So there is a full article there. And basically the keyword is probably the location or the attraction, but people don't know to search for that. So I have landing pages on my site. They're getting redesigned right now. And so each county has its own page.
Okay.
And so I pull in, so I sell like the top 3 positions on that are paid advertising.
That's smart.
And then the next section on that is the top tips for that county.
Okay.
And
Almost
then
like a tourism board's website.
almost like a tourism board website. And then the next section is basically all the articles that have been written, that county's tag, and then podcasts are at the bottom.
Wow. Wow. It's super smart.
But
Okay.
it was all built in stages though, right? So the site is 11 years old. I
Right. So
thought
if you're
about,
looking to do this for Costa Rica or Cuba, don't expect to be where Jody is tomorrow.
now I was overnight success after about 6 years.
I love that.
Yeah.
So have I missed any of your primary revenue streams?
I don't think so. I will say, of my primary revenue streams, Mediavine is 4th.
Wow.
And it's way, but again, I'm not getting hundreds of thousands of page views a month.
But the ones
My
you're
audience
getting
is,
matter.
yeah, my audience is very niche. I know who they are, and I narrow them down. I actually am narrowing them down again right now to really kind of hone that focus on the people who are going to want to use what I have and click and buy. But I would say that if there were anything I could go back and do sooner, it would be starting the podcast sooner.
Wow.
And
That's
it's so
so
easy to do.
special. Yeah.
And actually, I had started a Midwest podcast. And then, COVID hit. So I dropped it, but I love talking and I love sharing all these funny little places. So I'm actually thinking about restarting the Midwest podcast, but not having articles associated with it, just a page that has links. Because it's trying to SEO it is just, it's time consuming, and all they need is the link. That's all they're coming for. They don't need the whole story. So, just so I can talk to people and learn things and fun stuff.
How did you find the listeners for your podcast? Like, I know you were doing it for a while, but when you really buckled down and said, I'm doing this, all the time with a plan in place, how did you announce it on your newsletter? And that's when people started. Are people finding you just by searching for podcasts?
So at first, the way I got listeners was I basically appeared on every podcast I could. I was on, back when they had This Week in Travel, I was on with them. I appeared on every Ireland podcast I could, every general travel podcast that was accepting people. I just went on and talked about Ireland until they made me shut up.
So did you were just basically cold pitching most of those people?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. But that was, again, podcasts were kind of, podcasts have had kind of a roller coaster. They went up and then they went down. And I think this was just on the coming back up part. And then I also did a ton. So I was looking at it the other day, it was like 2016, 2017. In the lead up to St. Patrick's Day, I did one guest article a day for 17 family travel sites. So, and these are sites that, I mean, you're going to know these sites, like Kids Are a Trip. Oh my gosh, I think I did one for Walking on Travels, Vacation Mama.
Right.
Travel Mama. Yeah, that's it. But anyway, so all these family travel sites.
Wow.
I wrote a unique article for each and every one. And for 17 days leading up to St. Patrick's Day, so from March 1st to 17th, because they each had a published day. So one went out every single day. So they would put it out and promote it. And then I was promoting it everywhere as well. And that really helped. Wow. Back then. And then just a whole lot of, again, it was something that I was just like, one day I was like, I'm going to start a podcast. I didn't put a lot of thought into it. I really didn't. And I find that I've been stupidly lucky in a lot of ways with that. But
Mel Robbins has a theory, which I buy into, that there are some people who can't see the vision of the future because they're too busy taking all the little steps. Mm-hmm. And some people who can only see the vision of the future and they don't bother with any of the steps. They just jump right in.
Yeah.
I think we all know which one you fall into.
Yeah, and that's not to say I haven't flopped on a whole lot of things, because I have, but I've been pretty lucky in the things that I really enjoy. My problem is that I have so many ideas, I have to stop and really think if they're worth it anymore.
That's a good place
pause
to
before running. But yeah, the podcast has been so good for me, and I love it. Absolutely love it.
I love your passion about it. Thank you so much for sharing all of this with us. I mean, I've learned so much. And again, I have always been impressed with you, but now I'm blown away. I'm excited to go back and listen now with a different ear and pull out what nuggets I can to apply to my own business. So thank you.
Well, again, it's just been one of those things where it's a long road and a lot of work, but I think that if you start it, if what you're doing is done with a purpose, right? If what you're doing matters in some way, shape, or form, you're always going to find a reason to keep doing it. But that reason can never, ever be the dollar.
Because your passion.
At the end of your life, that dollar doesn't matter. So it's nice to have, don't get me wrong, getting paid is great. But if I didn't absolutely love the people that I get to work with and meet and continue with, it would just be another job, and there's jobs everywhere. So
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Jody. Thank you so much for your time.
oh, it was so much fun. As always, I can talk forever.
Thanks.